found when I first started out seeing clients, when they would come to see me, I would reframe their problems while I was asking questions, getting more information. And sometimes I actually managed to get rid of their problem before the work was being done. I used to give like a free consultation 25, 30 years ago when I first started seeing people. They'd get a 20-minute free chat with me. They loved it because they could get to know me and ask me questions. And as a new therapist, I got to get all the information I needed before I got to see them. Because at that point, I was a little bit unsure, oh, what am I going to do? And that was kind of like my safety net when I first started out. Then I realized that by reframing while I was chatting to them, sometimes I got rid of their problems. And it was a free chat. So I stopped doing that. Although I can't, I think the kind of reframing that I do, and I've seen Steve do it as well when we've been training, is it's kind of like teasing. We reframe with humor. We chide people. Because what happens when you laugh? You get different chemicals in your brain. And when you can actually see something as being silly, something that you built up to be really serious, and you break it down and you get them to look at it from a different perspective, especially with humor, it can be so powerful. Now, when you're going to do this, or even if you're just reframing, you have to do it in a respectful way. You've got to do it in a way that helps them stop that rigid thinking. Somebody got their microphone on. Can hear something. Okay. You've got to do it in such a way that they can see the rigid thinking. They can step outside of that unhelpful state, those patterns they're running, and look at it in a new light. Now, done skillfully, it creates a lightness, a safe place for them to actually look at something differently and find that humor. By playing the devil's advocate as well, maybe siding with the negative half of their ambivalence towards their life and their life's goals. Sometimes people come in and they're a bit like Eeyore. Oh, nothing's ever going to work. Oh, I've tried everything and oh. And if you've got somebody like that in front of you, you've got to change their state. You've got to move them into a different position. Now, I grew up in a family where we teased and we chided each other. And it's something that you do with your friends. Who here you've got friends, and when you're talking to them, I've got to go onto the gallery view now so I can see you all. When you're talking to your friends, you tease them. I know Steve doesn't have any friends, so he's just shaking his head like this. You tease them, you chide them. And they might come to you with something really terrible. I remember once someone I knew, he was in the army, and people in the army have the most bizarre sense of humor. Now they have to because of the situations they're in. They're in horrendous situations sometimes if they're in a war zone or a particular incident. And he was telling this story about his colleague who'd been blown up and was worried about something, and he'd lost a limb, and he's going, I've lost my arm. And they're going, no, you haven't, I've got it here. And all the soldiers were just laughing. And that's how they get through the whole stressful situation. Years ago, here in London, we had some terrorists around London Bridge, and they were stabbing people, and they killed some people. They injured a lot of people quite badly. And there was one particular guy. And in London, we have a football club called Millwall. And the Millwall supporters are said to be, quite fierce. A lot of them, what they will fight for their club. There's lots of fighting that goes on. And there was this guy in this pub who was a Millwall supporter, and he was the whole generalization of how many people think of a Millwall supporter to be. And he took umbrage that these people were trying to stab people in his pub while he was having a quiet drink, and he defended the other people in the pub. And he was stabbed multiple times. He did manage to get knives off of some of these terrorists, and he ended up in hospital. And he's sitting in hospital, and he's got stitches, and he's bandaged up, and he's been stabbed in the face, and he just looks a mess. And they were talking to him and asking how he was doing and commending his bravery. And he said, "My mate's bought me a book." And they said, "Yeah." And he went, "Look." And the book that his friends bought him was entitled Learn to Run. Now, this is the kind of chiding that I'm talking about. It's the kind of chiding that people do with their friends. Now, you can do this with your clients. To be able to do this with your clients, you need to be in deep rapport. Now, if any of you have seen Richard Bandler, he does this all the time. He chides the people he's working with. He's teasing them. And you do it in such a way you're not you're not making fun of their pain. It's all about having a twinkle in your eye, smile on your lips, and it's you're employing like the affectionate banter between friends, using humor to help sensitize and desensitize them to their problematic behavior. Now, while you're doing this, the purpose is to affirm their self-worth verbally and behaviorally and get it so that they assert themselves appropriately. Because you'll find that if you do tease them, you get that rapport going and you can tease them, they will begin to say things like, "Well, no, that's not right because I can do this." And they'll begin to tell you how confident they can be and how they can do things. They begin to defend themselves. Now, I have a strange way of working with depressives, for example, people that are depressed. I make them convince me to work with them because while they're convincing me to help them, they're having to go to all those places that, as a hypnotherapist or an helper, I'm going to want to take them to change their state. And also, while they're giving me those arguments and they're defending why I should work for them and all the things that I'll be able to help them do, it then gives me an insight into how their brain is working. Now, we have a friend, Steve and I, and some of you will know her, you would have met her, and she knows that I tell this story, so she's not, I do have her permission. She was amazing NELPA and hypnotherapist. And she stopped working with people because she couldn't charge them. She didn't feel that she could actually say, "Okay, so this session's going to be X, get the money up front, get a deposit, whatever." She just couldn't do it. And she was paying for rooms to see clients, and then she couldn't take any money off of them. So in the end, she stopped working with people. And she was saying, I don't know what I'm going to do because I love working with people, but I can't. And there's all sorts of suggestions that were given. And I said, "So when they come to see you in the office, do they come in and they fill out a form?" "Oh no, they've already filled out the form." She said, What I do, the first thing I do is I make them a cup of tea and I give them a biscuit. And I said, there you go. The session's free, the tea and the biscuit, 150 quid. And of course, she laughed. And while she's laughing, her her brain chemistry is changing. She's beginning to see it as being silly. And now instead of this huge limitation, she's like, oh, I can't do that. And I went, well, all right then. A cup of tea, £100, 50 quid if you want biscuits. And I was just being really, really silly about the whole thing until she was giggling because she could see the joke and the silliness in it. Like the poor guy, the Millwall supporter in hospital, covered in stitches and bandages, was laughing because his friends bought him a book that said "Learn to Run." Now, doing this with humour, as I said, you have to be careful. You need to do it with a smile, like you're teasing. I mean, if I'd have said to so, well, why don't you charge them for the teas and coffees then? That's a different to, well, I know what you can do. Charge them 150 quid for a cup of tea and a biscuit. It's different depending as to how you make that delivery. Now, somebody put a limitation in the chat, so I'm not going to mention any names. And this is something that, again, we hear quite regularly from people. This particular person said that they've been trying to stop smoking, they can't stop smoking, and they're beginning to feel that they can't be any good at what they're going to do because how can they help people stop smoking if they can't stop smoking themselves?